am as well. So to start wrapping things up here, I have to ask you how big these 3 points are in the context of our season. As we spoke about what it felt like at the beginning for us personally, but there is another conversation about how big these 3 points are in terms of a potential title race. You know, if we had lost this game, the narrative would have been that the title was done. You know, you can't lose to Manchester City and then go into the Etihad, like at home, and then go to the Etihad and, potentially lose there and expect to be in a title race. But now that the game is done, I'm not hearing a lot. It's very quiet on like what does this mean? You know, I'm seeing rivals saying things like, "Oh, so now they're in the title race." But how could we be out of it if we lost, but not in it if we win? So, is it just 3 points, or is it bigger than that?
Oh no, when you're a title contender, every 3 points matters. I know a lot of rival fans aren't used to that feeling where it's like, oh, you can drop points here or there, but like, let's not forget we're the same fan base that had meltdowns on 2 draws. I don't know how many. We haven't lost a game in Prem this season. We have not lost a game in Prem this season, and I feel like this City game was the one game that everyone assumed we were going to lose. Worst case, just drop points. So with that, not only the mental side, but also in the side of at the end of the season, these points matter. I know people think they don't matter, but when we start when it gets to that nitty-gritty points of like who's going to be allowed to drop 2 points here, 1 point here, these points that we're accumulating now in the fashion we're doing it without the players that we have, because a lot of these other teams haven't lost some of their biggest players yet. The fact that we are doing this without these players, I think that not even that it says anything. I think it's just that it's massive. It's massive. It's massive. It's massive simply because if you think we look good now, wait till everyone's back. Just wait till everyone's back. So I think it's huge.
So yeah, like it's definitely, I think, more than 3 point, or it's a very important 3 points in the context of Arsenal's goal, which I'm hoping and I'm thinking is the same as most fans, is we want to be in the title race. You can't ever get like, you want to win the title, you want to be in a title race. All this, you got to win the Premier League or the Champions League or you're out. Pause. No. You want to be in the title race. Like, I think the teams are stronger this season. I think it's going to be more than just us in Manchester City. It's going to be a couple other teams probably involved in there as well. And so, of course, beating Manchester City at home is big 3 points, because now the pressure is not, obviously you still have to beat all the other teams home and away and not drop any points and beat your other rivals and all that kind of stuff. But if it were to come down to it and we have to play Manchester City and like we're not in a position where it's like a must win at the Etihad, which is a very difficult feat. You know, we just have to not lose. And we saw basic for me at the like last season, I thought the title was done when we lost to them at home, because the mental shift that happened on that day for me was very obvious, because they knew that all they had to do was beat us at home at their place, and they knew we'd drop enough points where they could get in front of us. And so now that's out of the question. We still have to beat everybody else, fine, you know, but I think it's massive in that context where Manchester City are not going to be this bad for the whole entire season, though, by the way. Like, I know people are like, oh, no, they're not. They're going to get KDB back. Rodri's going to be back. It's fine. So we had to capitalize now. So it is important. I also think it's important not to get carried away as well, which I don't think the players will, because I think they're more mature now than they were last season. I think they understand that this is just the beginning, but they also knew that they needed to capitalize on yesterday as well. What are you going to say?
Um, I'll just say this very quick tidbit. If we had beaten Man City at home last season, we win the title. Like, and I'll explain that. We ended up the season with 84 points. They ended with 89, 5 point difference. That, just to show how significant that is a 6 point swing, and we lost the title by 5. So it's like, granted, different circumstances, people will play different and stuff like that, but I don't think people understand how big of a swing that is when we're not dropping 6 points and taking none to the direct rival that we're up against. So I think it's a lot bigger than people think, because the back and forth between us City is it's 12 points in total for every, like, I know people don't see it that way, but winning here also means they got no points, which then means they have to now work harder to find those points elsewhere, while we don't have to think about that much because we've now taken those 3 points from them. So I think it's so, like, it's because of the fact that this game is in October that people aren't really clocking the magnitude. But when we start accumulating points again and we start seeing the gap again, City won't be able to jump us again because those swings aren't there anymore. So
Yeah.
something to
No,
consider.
I agree. I think the emotional and psychological side of football sometimes people don't see. And look at the way that they reacted to losing that game. Where look at the reaction when they beat us. They knew that they had us at that moment. And I felt it as well. I was like, they have us now. They know. Like Pep will tell them that this is a big step towards winning the title. And they need encouragement to feel like if they're behind that they can catch you. And we encourage them. This season we didn't do that, and that's a good thing. That's a good step forward. The formula is still the same. You need to beat all the small teams home and away. You need to, against your top 4/top 6 rivals, you have to beat them at home and you cannot lose to them away. That's because now I feel like, against Tottenham, probably gonna have to go to the toilet bowl and beat them. We can. I think we can. I didn't see anything that makes me think we can't beat them. So that's kind of where we're at. But I told you before the show that I wanted you to give your the biggest thing that you learned or your biggest takeaway from yesterday's match, and then your biggest question after yesterday's match. And so next time you come to the show, I'll be able to ask you if you still feel like your biggest takeaway is true and if you got the answer to your question. So what are those two things?
Biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway is Tomiyasu is significantly more. He's so much more important than people realize than he is, and I feel like the more people see him as a utility player that can solve problems like every other person, I feel like you will see his minutes jolt up. And I guess my question is, where do we go with Bukayo Saka's load management? Where do we go from here? We escaped one this week, but will he learn? Will things get better? Will we ever see him limping off again? And if not, I think we need to really start asking questions about that specific question. So,
Yeah.
I wish I had like a hotter take. And I'm so sorry. I feel like those two are so safe.